Hello, I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to another LCS breakdown. I hope you guys all enjoy. Some of my favorite videos to do on this channel, of course, will be the LCS breakdown for this past weekend, that being weekend number 3, and we saw some major shifts in the standings. We now have so many middle ground teams out there, something I'm a little worried about, but if you guys are actually new to the show, one of my favorite shows to do for League of Legends, as we break down 5 awards: the MVP, the best team of the week, the plays of the week, the underwhelming team, and the underwhelming player of the week, and we shift through all those awards. They'll be timestamped down below if you guys want to jump back and forth. And of course, the current standings out there, like we're seeing as well with the LEC in the LCS, is a very top heavy schedule so far. Liquid, we're not really going to talk about them too much because they're so dominant, seemingly the only team in North America currently to not play that passive playstyle. We have seen a lot of lengthy games out there, Liquid being one of the few teams who can actually get the Baron and secure the win. They do that twice this past weekend. Cloud9, though, actually showing back up. They are right there behind them, and then everyone else, those middle ground teams, although 2 of them really did stand out: 100Thieves, Golden Guardians, right back in the mix. TSM had a very rough weekend. Optic's main starting roster had an equally kind of a rough start as well. So hope you guys all enjoy. Let's break it down. Let's get into our first award, of course, that being the MVPs of the week. So some of these I'm very excited to announce. Of course, the first of which have to be Licorice and Sneaky. I think a lot of people want to give it to Sneaky because his 11-1-6 performance on that Ezreal, certainly a carry for that guy, and as well as a deathless one against TSM, I believe, both on Ezreal. But I want to say also in this needs to be shouted out, that has to be Licorice. His performance was subpar to none besides his teammate Sneaky. I mean, props maybe go to, of course, Cloud9, but as a team and together, but the last pick, Sylas, and the way Licorice utilized this once he reached level 16, once he reached that mid to late game, the utilization against that comp, the Scion, the Lissandra, the Zillion steal, it was actually just, it was almost beautiful. I almost feel really nerdy saying that, but his playstyle along with Sneaky, certainly deserving of MVPs this week from Cloud9's roster. Yes, I can name a lot of Liquid members out there. We're going to kind of bypass them until a week they maybe actually have some closer games, but again, alongside that, kind of a sleeper out there has to be Deftly. Again, Golden Guardians certainly on the comeback, and again, a projected top half team when we first started things off. I could also name Ssumday and Bang, so don't get mad at me, 100Thieves fans, but Deftly is a sleeper pick here because all eyes were on Froggen. His late game Karthus was insane. I think a 13-4 finish, 13-5 finish for him, but again, once again, Deftly on the Ezreal pick, just like Sneaky. This does draw the question, right? Is Ezreal broken right now? It seems that many teams out there, their only wins are with an Ezreal pick to their side, but alongside that, though, Deftly, he goes 4-0 against Optic, I think 10-1 against TSM. Some crazy performances out of this guy as well, certainly carrying that team alongside Froggen, but again, a double Inferno, Elder Dragon, Karthus, you click R, and so Deftly, I think, has those well-deserved dives. But also, moving off the top of that, guys, of course, our best teams of the week, and there's quite a few I want to mention here. And both of these teams are teams that had the worst starts of any teams in this split so far throughout the first 2 weeks. Of course, Golden Guardians, they go 0-4, 100Thieves a 1-3 start, although they did play, 3 of the top 5 teams arguably in the league to start off. But again, a team who was looking very underwhelming, people wondering where Afromu was. Bang was certainly the hard carry of the team still. Ssumday it's still not shown up, but I say that no longer because this weekend belonged to both of these teams. First of all, Golden Guardians coming up against Optic Gaming. Optic looked completely uncommunicative in that first game. I will say that Optic looked much better in their second matchup. Golden Guardians made them look like absolute fools, and against TSM, it was Golden Guardians extending this game out, dragging it out so far that it was just it was actually uncomebackable. That's not even a word, but TSM had no chance against that late game comp, that late game Karthus. They gave up double Inferno, they gave up Elder. By 40 plus minutes, this game was already over. It was just a matter of when, and again, props to GGS to actually point it out to that length and looking very dominant. Although I will say a team that impressed me all the more because of their individual skill was 100Thieves. This was Ssumday's return weekend, guys, on Urgot, looking so amazing. Of course, picking off early picks as well, just remaining so calm in his lane and controlling that lane throughout both these matchups. In the game against CLG, he catches out Darshan very early. They snowball that lead against CLG, but they do one thing. I'll show you guys a clip as well. They extended fights all weekend long. They know what they need to do. They did so very riskily, okay? Very risky plays by this team. I'm using a lot of words today that might not even be words, but still, the effect of this team, and Ssumday being a large part of that, staying alive in that extended fight around, of course, that top lane, and still managing to come out alive, as well as win those team fights. They did very well. Communication this week was certainly there, and alongside that against Clutch Gaming, back to being Ssumday, the MVP of this week, a deathless Urgot. He controlled that lane the entire way through. I mean, the entire team though, a ton of presence, a ton of control. Clutch Gaming set the record for the longest time to take their first tower. I believe it wasn't until after 28 minutes into the game. Now, I will say the one tad bit I'm a bit worried about is 100Thieves' ability to actually capitalize on these smaller leads, small to medium leads, and actually finish out the game. That game still went very late against Clutch, although I will say I think they had pretty much full control near the end of that game when they took it to the victory. So still a great performance, guys, out of all these players so far. Team of the week though, Golden Guardians, is alongside 100Thieves, but again, I could call out many people from 100Thieves. He is not having a terrible time. Like, he was our underwhelming player week 1 and week 2. He was certainly having a pretty solid game, in my opinion. Pretty solid games this past weekend. Bang the hard carry. Ssumday certainly looked very, very well. All in all, guys, 100Thieves, Golden Guardians, they seem to be back. But let's see their plays of the week as well. Talking about Ssumday for plays of the week, the first one, of course, against Huni and Lyra on 1v2.
Right there, as they fully commit onto Ssumday, they land the double bomb. Ghost is buying some space here though for Ssumday, gets back, and this is so smart. He doesn't actually use the ult on to Lyra because he knows he's gonna go down. He saves it, waits until Lyra is in the res, hits Huni, tower shot plus the ultimate, pulls the fear back onto Lyra. Are you kidding me?
And the other play of the week, it might not be a play of the week to some of you guys, and it might not have been the turning point of this game because their late game comp was so good. That's Golden Guardians as well. The 2 teams of the week get the 2 plays of the week. That being Froggen though, 1 triple kill and a double kill late game. Unfortunately enough, it was going to be a triple kill, but Hanser, unfortunately, he did steal that kill before. I think it was actually on Broken Blade against TSM, but a triple kill and a double kill late game Karthus is just unstoppable.
What is it actually? Broken Blade and Smoothie still trying to get on the side of the fight. Contract's about to be going down as he throws on the Zanyas. His ultimate is down and he is down as the shutdown comes in from Broken Blade. Looks like Hanser could be next. Everybody's so gold, and that's what TSM is picking up right now. The turret goes down. That's a kill coming in for Froggen on the Requiem. Finally, he feels good with Broken Blade and Acadian going down. He has to get away from it so it's not heating up for the other members of the team. Smoothie tries to get in with a beautiful boat rush. What a hit from Contracts, and that's going to be Bjergsen in the middle. Throws down the ultimate on himself. Very low members of GGS, but they're still alive to fight, and that's what matters as a final shutdown comes in. Orbital laser online, and there goes Acadian. 2 dead, 3 dead on the side of TSM, and GGS is walking through the base with minions.
And still one of my least favorite segments to do, of course, the underwhelming teams of the week. This week, though, will be Clutch and TSM, both going 0-2. Let me first start out by saying we have so many middle ground teams. Besides Liquid being by far and away our best, I think Cloud9 is surely close to follow. A team who is not afraid to actually risk their picks to try and learn some new things for later in the split. Those 2 teams, I think, are still far and away our better teams out there. The rest of the pack, though, still within 1 game of each other. So let's keep in mind all these games are going to be fairly back and forth, unless we mention Liquid or Cloud9, and it certainly does show. But this past weekend, 2 of our teams going 0-2, being TSM and Clutch, are certainly missing something. Now, here's my breakdown. You guys can leave your comments down below as well. When it comes to Clutch, though, a back and forth game, I would say, with 100Thieves, but when against Cloud9, Huni being caught out very early on, it pretty much snowballed from there. And I will say a pretty good gank set up by this roster, but countered by Cloud9 pretty much meant that game was over right then and there. A great counter play by Cloud9, or was it a bad call by Clutch? You know, it's really up in the air what you want to call that. And against 100Thieves, they certainly had these team fights in lock once they could actually get the initial poke off, but I think 100Thieves as well. Was it an outplay by 100Thieves? Was it an underplay by Clutch roster miscommunication? They had to communicate so heavily to actually get that initial poke. They were winning those team fights when they got off enough of that poke before 100Thieves engaged, but I will say once again, he really impressed me with his engages for this 100Thieves roster, and once a few team fights went their way, 100Thieves then secured that. Moving on to TSM, though, this team is certainly missing, I would say, I want to say something, but it seems when this team does not have an Ezreal pick on their side, they lose the matchup. I'm not going to totally blame Sven on this, but when it seems he cannot get that pick off and actually feed him on Ezreal, and I don't want to say Ezreal is broken, although it's certainly leaning that way, this team has lost every time they have not gotten the Ezreal pick, and I believe their 2 victories are when they have gotten it. And you could argue, right, they play against Cloud9. Cloud9 made it look pretty easy against Clutch. They did the same against TSM, just outdone right from the get-go. But against Golden Guardians, well, yet again, TSM pushes it a little bit late, and their window was so short. Again, against Golden Guardians, there's not much you can do when you give up a double Inferno plus an Elder to a Karthus Ezreal build, and they very well probably know that, right? If it had been vice versa, they had Sven on that Ezreal with a double Inferno Elder, I guarantee you TSM would have come away with the win. And this leads into our underwhelming player, guys. I think this week has to solely go to Acadian. Now, I will say throughout the entire split, he has not been bad whatsoever on this roster. I think has had a pretty fairly good split so far. Besides this past weekend, he was almost useless on that Camille pick. I think that really did stand out for myself. 0-7 on Camille, pretty much useless. Therefore, and they're out. I will say that likely did cost them the game, but again, you never really know how these things do play out. This was by far and away the worst performance we have seen Acadian have this entire split, and it's not even close. And I'm not placing full blame. I know it's really hard to single out just one player out there, but you could say Ssumday had a pretty lackluster performance as well. This roster seemingly missing something. I'm not going to pretend I know what that is, but it does seem so far TSM without the Ezreal pick has certainly struggled. I think Acadian could certainly bounce back. There are talks already from the casters and so on and so forth about Academy members stepping in and of course taking his place. I don't think it needs to go there quite yet. All these teams again are still very, very much grouped up, and I think a very experienced team here. Bounce back, don't pick Camille, and I'm excited to see how Acadian can actually handle this kind of pressure once these talks are set about him. Can he bounce back even stronger? And I certainly have some faith in them. All in all, though, LCS throughout week 3 is dead even besides a few teams out there in the top. Everyone else is still fighting for those top 6 places. But as always, my name is Jake. I hope you guys all enjoyed this week breakdown, and I'll see you guys back here later today with LEC breakdown or next week with LCS week 4. But until then, hope you guys all enjoy, and I'll see you then.